My name is Alyssa Carter, and for the last year, I thought I was finally rebuilding my life. After breaking things off with Jared, my ex-boyfriend of 4 years, I packed what little dignity I had left and moved out of the condo we once shared in Seattle. He kept the place. I didn't fight for anything. I just wanted peace. I found a one-bedroom apartment in a quieter part of town, got a part-time marketing gig with a local firm, and picked up freelance social media work to keep the lights on. I wasn't rich, but I was finally free. Free from his manipulation. Free from the gaslighting. Free from the games. Mornings in my new world were slow and quiet. I'd brew my coffee, open my laptop by the window, and catch the morning light on the leaves outside. It wasn't glamorous, but it was peaceful, something I hadn't known in years. I even adopted a rescue cat named Milo, who quickly became my emotional support buddy. My friends said I seemed lighter, happier. They were right, until the envelope came. It was a regular Wednesday. I'd just returned from Trader Joe's with groceries when I noticed the thick, manila envelope sticking out from my mailbox. My stomach twisted before I even opened it. There was a red stamp across the top. Notice of civil suit. Inside, I found neatly stapled pages accusing me of owing Jared $18,742. He was suing me. According to the claim, during our relationship, I had borrowed money from him for vacations, car payments, and personal expenses, and now he wanted it all back, plus damages for emotional distress. I dropped to the floor in my kitchen, my groceries still in bags. It felt like the air had been knocked out of me. I hadn't borrowed money from Jared. We were partners. We had joint plans. Sometimes I paid, sometimes he did. We were building a life together, or so I thought. But now he was rewriting the past and dragging me into a courtroom to make me pay for his version of it. I spent that night curled up on the couch, Milo on my chest, eyes red from crying. I kept rereading the documents, hoping I had misinterpreted something. But it was all there, cold, calculated, and full of lies. He even attached fake transaction logs I had never seen before. My name was listed next to supposed loans he claimed I verbally agreed to. The audacity of it shook me. Jared came from a wealthier family. His dad was an attorney, and Jared always believed money could win anything. I used to joke about his rich boy attitude, but now it wasn't funny anymore. He was using his privilege and resources to crush me under a legal machine I could barely afford to understand. The next morning, I called my best friend, Rachel, in full panic mode. She listened patiently as I choked on my words between sobs, and without hesitation, she said, "Alyssa, you need to fight this. Don't let him get away with it. Not this time." Rachel recommended a lawyer she knew from college, Dylan Matthews, a sharp, no-nonsense legal consultant who worked with women in civil cases. I called him immediately. His assistant squeezed me into a last-minute slot that Friday afternoon. When I walked into Dylan's office, I felt small and nervous. It was one of those downtown buildings with floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist furniture. I wore a second-hand blazer and jeans, clutching a folder of every receipt, screenshot, and message I could find. Dylan greeted me with a firm handshake and kind eyes. "I've seen these kinds of cases," he said after skimming through Jared's lawsuit. "It's intimidation. He's banking on you not fighting back." "But I can't afford this," I whispered. He leaned forward. "You'd be surprised what we can do, with the truth on our side. Let me help." I didn't know it then, but that meeting would be the beginning of a long, painful war and a powerful awakening. In the days that followed, Dylan and I began gathering evidence. I sent him old texts where Jared told me to use his card for dinners, his Venmo notes saying, "Happy birthday" or "Get yourself something." It wasn't easy digging through the past. Every message I read made me question how I had ever loved someone so capable of cruelty. Meanwhile, Jared's lawyers began sending new demands, asking for bank statements, threatening to freeze my accounts. It was overwhelming. At night, I couldn't sleep. During the day, I had panic attacks. But something inside me shifted. I wasn't that girl anymore. I wasn't the silent, agreeable partner who let things slide for the sake of peace. This time, I was going to fight. But I could sense there was something more beneath Jared's actions.
Why now?
Why this amount? And how was he so confident unless he had something planned?
The thought haunted me.
And then one morning Dylan called. "You're not going to believe what I just found," he said. "But this changes everything." I froze. "What do you mean?" "I think your ex made a mistake. A big one." He didn't elaborate, just told me to come to the office that afternoon. As I hung up the phone, a mix of fear and adrenaline surged through me. Whatever Dylan had found, I knew it was the beginning of the unraveling. Of truth, justice, and maybe, just maybe, revenge served cold. I showed up at Dylan's office that afternoon, heart pounding so hard it echoed in my ears. I'd barely slept the night before, running through every possible thing Jared might have forged, planted, or manipulated to build his case. But Dylan sounded so sure, so calm. He greeted me with the same cool professionalism as before, but this time I noticed a smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. "Come in, Alyssa," he said, gesturing toward his office. I sank into the leather chair across from his desk, my palms damp against my jeans. "So," I said, "what did you find?" Dylan flipped open his laptop and pulled up an email chain. "We subpoenaed Jared's financial records early. I didn't expect to get a response this quickly, but his bank complied. And, well," he turned the screen toward me, "your ex is dumber than he thinks." Displayed in front of me were digital copies of several wire transfers, all under Jared's name. But they weren't going to me. They were being sent from him to a woman named Kelsey Marin. "Who is that?" I asked, confused. "She's the person who owns the account that supposedly loaned you the $8,000 he listed for the Hawaii trip," Dylan explained. "But as it turns out, she's not a lender. She's his new girlfriend." I blinked. "Wait." He made it look like I borrowed from a lender, but he actually paid her. "Exactly. And here's the kicker. He transferred that money after the trip. Not before. And he labeled it in his ledger as loan to Alyssa." I stared at the screen. My throat felt dry. So, he tried to fabricate a debt by funneling money to his girlfriend and pretending I owed it? "Yup," Dylan said. "And that's just the beginning. I'm digging into the car payment receipts next. If we can prove a pattern of fabricated debts or false claims, it'll not only get his case dismissed, it could get him sanctioned for fraud." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. A small ember of hope sparked to life inside me. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just defending myself, I might actually win. But the fight wasn't over. Over the next week, Jared's legal team doubled down. They sent a barrage of intimidating letters, demands for more of my private accounts, claims that I deleted messages that proved his case, and even a warning that if I didn't settle out of court, he'd pursue criminal charges for financial misconduct. I knew it was smoke. I knew it was posturing. But it still rattled me. Meanwhile, Rachel stayed glued to my side. She'd bring over pad thai and wine on the rougher nights, reminding me who I was. "This is what narcissists do," she'd say. "They lose control, so they try to punish you. But you're smarter than him now." I nodded, but deep down, I couldn't shake the fear that somehow, some way, Jared would find a way to win. That fear came crashing down when I saw him again. It was a preliminary court meeting, a mediation hearing, just to see if a settlement was possible. I hadn't seen Jared in almost a year. When he walked into the room, dressed in a sleek gray suit, smirking like he was strolling into a boardroom instead of a courtroom, I felt my stomach churn. He didn't even look at me, just greeted his attorney and sat down across the table like this was all business. But I wasn't the same Alyssa he used to manipulate. When his lawyer started talking, rambling about my debt, the support Jared provided me, I kept my eyes on the stack of files Dylan brought in. I waited, and then Dylan laid out the printouts. The forged entries, the mismatched dates, the girlfriend's account, every lie. Jared's smirk faltered. His lawyer paused mid-sentence, squinting at the paperwork. "I'd be very careful how you proceed," Dylan said smoothly. "Because we're prepared to file a countersuit for defamation, malicious prosecution, and financial fraud. And depending on the judge, your client could be liable for punitive damages." The room went cold.
Jared spoke up for the first time.
"This is ridiculous," he snapped. "She lived off me for years. She took everything." "No," I cut in, my voice firmer than I expected. "You controlled everything. You manipulated me into thinking love meant silence. And now you're trying to rewrite history to punish me for leaving." His eyes narrowed. "You can't prove any of it." Dylan tapped the files. "We already have. And we're just getting started." The meeting adjourned without a settlement. Back outside, I stood on the courthouse steps, the wind tugging at my coat. I could still feel Jared's stare on my back. Still hear his lawyer whispering hurriedly in his ear. Rachel texted me, "How'd it go?" I responded, "He knows he's losing. It's only a matter of time." That night, as I sat in my apartment sipping tea, Milo purring in my lap, I let myself feel something I hadn't in weeks. Power. Not revenge. Not victory. Just power. The kind that comes from truth. From refusing to be the victim again. But deep down, I also knew something else. This wasn't over. Not even close. Jared was too arrogant, too calculating, to back down now. If anything, he'd get desperate. And desperate people do dangerous things. In the days after the mediation hearing, I couldn't shake the look in Jared's eyes. That glare wasn't defeat. It was warning. A silent threat. And I knew better than anyone what he was capable of when he felt cornered. Still, I refused to let fear dictate my next move. If anything, the pressure made me more determined to dismantle the false image Jared had built, piece by piece. I spent the next week working with Dylan to organize our evidence into a chronological narrative, every transaction, every message, every date that proved Jared was rewriting the past. We built a detailed timeline showing how he had framed regular couple activities as loans and debts. We even discovered that he had edited screenshots of our old text conversations to make it appear like I had agreed to pay him back. Only the metadata told a different story. The edits were recent. "Honestly," Dylan said, scrolling through the data files, "if he wasn't trying to ruin your life, I'd almost admire his creativity." I smirked, though my stomach still turned when I thought about how deep Jared had gone to destroy me. But things were about to get more complicated. That Friday, I received a notification from my bank. My account had been temporarily frozen due to a pending claim of fraud. I stared at my phone in disbelief, the air going thick around me. I called the bank immediately. "Ma'am," the rep said, "we received a fraud complaint alleging unauthorized transfers from Mr. Jared Thompson's account to yours. Until the matter is resolved, your funds are on hold." I felt my blood boil. Jared wasn't just suing me, he was trying to financially strangle me into submission. I called Dylan in a panic. "He froze my account, Dylan. He's trying to break me." Dylan's voice was calm, but tense. "This is retaliation. It's illegal if we can prove intent. I'll get the emergency motion filed first thing Monday. But, Alyssa, you need to stay steady. He's unraveling. That's when people like Jared make their worst mistakes." I hung up and slid to the floor of my apartment, Milo meowing beside me like he could sense the storm gathering. I was tired, exhausted, really, but I also knew I couldn't give him the satisfaction of watching me fall apart. I borrowed $500 from Rachel just to pay rent and keep groceries in the fridge. I picked up a few extra freelance projects. I barely slept. But every second I spent fighting back made me feel less like Jared's victim, and more like my own defender. Then came the witness bombshell. One afternoon, Dylan called, his tone more excited than usual. "I think I found someone who can flip this whole case," he said. "Her name's Emily Jameson. She used to work at Jared's family's accounting firm. She reached out anonymously after hearing about your case." "Wait," I said. "She contacted you?" "She left after some shady things went down. Apparently, she overheard Jared bragging to a friend at the office about teaching his ex a lesson through court and how easy it was to turn love into debt. She says he even joked about calling it emotional tax." I felt sick. "She's willing to testify? If we protect her identity and file the right motions, yes." It was a ray of light. A credible witness, someone from Jared's circle, willing to speak truth. But it was risky. Jared's family was known for burying problems, especially ones that could embarrass them publicly. Still, we added Emily to the witness list. The trial date was approaching, and our case was growing stronger. We had proof of altered documents, proof of false transactions, and now, a potential whistleblower. But the closer we got to court, the more aggressive Jared became. One morning, I found my car windshield shattered in the parking lot outside my apartment. Nothing was stolen. No note. Just a clear message: I know where you live. The police wrote it up as vandalism, but I didn't need confirmation to know who was behind it. Jared was spiraling. Rachel stayed with me for 2 nights afterward, and Dylan advised me to document everything. I bought a home security camera and changed my locks. The fear was real, but I refused to back down. Still, the anxiety crept in, especially late at night. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how someone I once loved could hate me so much. I thought back to the first time Jared took me out, how he smiled, how he made me feel seen when I was drowning in self-doubt. Was that all a lie? Or had he just changed into something darker, more dangerous? Regardless, I knew the woman I was now would never fall for him again. As the court date neared, I started prepping for my testimony. Dylan coached me through every detail: how to keep calm under pressure, how to answer cross-examination, how to stand firm even if Jared tried to provoke me. "You'll want to cry," he said, "but don't let him see you break. Let the facts speak for you. The truth will be your sharpest weapon." I nodded. "I'm ready." "Good," Dylan replied, closing his laptop. "Because I think we're about to drop a hammer on this guy." The night before the trial, I lit a candle, wrote down everything I wanted to let go of: fear, shame, regret, and burned the paper in a bowl by my window. Milo sat beside me, watching the flames dance. I wasn't just fighting Jared anymore. I was fighting the parts of myself that still felt small, that still believed I deserved this punishment. No more. Tomorrow, I was walking into that courtroom not as Jared's ex but as Alyssa Carter, a woman who survived, who stood up, and who was finally ready to face him one last time. The morning of the trial was gray and silent, as if the city itself was holding its breath. I dressed in the most neutral, respectful outfit I owned: a navy blue blouse, pressed slacks, and a blazer that didn't scream wealth or weakness. My hair was tied back, my makeup light, my heart pounding. Rachel drove me to the courthouse, her hand never leaving mine until the moment I stepped out. "You've got this," she whispered. "No matter what happens, Jared's mask is coming off today." The courtroom was smaller than I expected, but its stillness carried weight. Jared sat across the room, flanked by a suited attorney and a smug expression that hadn't changed since the day he served me. He looked like a man confident in his own performance, someone who believed he still had control. He didn't. The judge, Honorable Margaret Ellis, entered with quiet authority. Silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and known for her no-nonsense courtroom demeanor, she surveyed the room with an air of practiced patience. Opening statements began. Jared's lawyer went first, painting me as a reckless woman who freeloaded off a generous partner and then ghosted him, leaving him in financial disarray. He cited verbal agreements, financial support, and claimed Jared had been left emotionally and monetarily drained. It took everything in me not to roll my eyes. Every word was a performance, rehearsed and dramatic. Then it was our turn. Dylan stood with calm confidence. "Your Honor," he began, "this case isn't about money. It's about manipulation. It's about a man who couldn't accept that a woman walked away from his control and who has now weaponized the legal system to punish her." He outlined the evidence: altered screenshots, fabricated spreadsheets, and inconsistent bank records. He mentioned how Jared sent funds to a third party, his current girlfriend, then tried to frame those transactions as loans to me. Judge Ellis listened intently, her face unreadable. Then it was my turn. I stepped into the witness box, swore the oath, and took a deep breath. "Miss Carter," Jared's lawyer began, his tone smooth and condescending, "isn't it true that during your relationship, you were financially dependent on Mr. Thompson?" "No," I said firmly. "We shared responsibilities. We made decisions together. He offered things willingly I never asked for or agreed to loans." He smirked. But you accepted trips, car payments, dinners. That sounds like dependency. That sounds like a relationship, I replied. And I contributed what I could. Emotionally, financially, and otherwise. Jared never once said it was a loan. Not until I left. A few people in the gallery stirred. Even the court clerk paused briefly in her typing.
His lawyer tried again.
So, you're saying these transfers, this $8,000, wasn't a loan? No, I said, looking straight at the judge. It was a gift he gave to someone else, his current girlfriend. He tried to backdate it and claim it was for me. Dylan stood and presented the subpoenaed records. Judge Ellis studied them carefully. Mr. Thompson, she finally said, can you explain these inconsistencies in your financial documentation? Jared took the stand reluctantly. His smile was gone now. He started to speak, but something shifted. His voice cracked. His story stumbled. My assistant handled some of those records, he mumbled. I might have mixed a few things up,
but the intent was still the same.
Alyssa knew she owed me. We had an understanding. Did you or did you not send money to Ms. Kelsey Marin and label it as a loan to Miss Carter? The judge asked, her voice cool. Jared hesitated. Well, yeah, but it was complicated. Answer the question clearly, Mr. Thompson, she interrupted. Yes, he said, barely audible. I could feel the tide turning. Then Dylan introduced Emily Jameson, our surprise witness. She walked in with a quiet dignity that silenced the room. She confirmed everything she'd told Dylan privately, that Jared had joked about the lawsuit, that he saw it as revenge, and even admitted to falsifying certain dates in his files. Judge Ellis raised an eyebrow. So, you're saying Mr. Thompson fabricated parts of his financial narrative as a personal vendetta? Yes, Your Honor, Emily replied without hesitation. He called it financial chess. The judge was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke. I've seen many civil suits built on messy breakups, she began. But what I've seen here today is not a matter of financial miscommunication. It's a matter of intentional deceit. She turned to Jared. Mr. Thompson, this court finds your testimony inconsistent and your evidence unreliable. Not only does the court dismiss this case with prejudice, but I am referring this matter to the State Bar for possible sanctions and to the District Attorney's Office for investigation into fraud. The courtroom erupted into murmurs. I couldn't breathe.
Dismissed.
Sanctions. Fraud investigation. It was over. Judge Ellis continued, looking toward me now. Miss Carter, I apologize that this court was used to harass and intimidate you. You've handled yourself with grace. You're free to go. I nodded, stunned. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, for once, from relief. Jared sat frozen, his face pale. The man who once held every string in our relationship had just been exposed, stripped of his lies in front of a judge, a courtroom, and himself. I walked out of that courtroom taller than I'd ever walked before. Not because I had destroyed him, but because I had refused to be destroyed by him. The courtroom was pin-drop silent when Judge Ramirez returned from a brief recess. I could feel my heart pounding like a war drum as I gripped the edge of my seat, my lawyer Daniel giving me a firm nod. Across the aisle, Ava sat calmly, smugly even, as if she'd already won.
But everything was about to change.
Miss Parker, the judge began, addressing Ava, I've taken the liberty of reviewing the documents your team submitted in support of your financial claim. There are significant inconsistencies. Ava shifted slightly, her expression stiffening. The judge continued, holding up one of the forged statements. According to your sworn affidavit, Mr. Wilson provided no financial support during your 2-year relationship. However, our independent review of his bank statements and PayPal transactions show frequent and large payments to your account, including one for a down payment on your car. A murmur swept through the courtroom. That's not. Ava started. Don't interrupt me, Judge Ramirez said sharply, her voice echoing off the walls. Furthermore, your claim that you co-signed the lease on the property you shared with Mr. Wilson has also been disproved. His lease never listed a second occupant, and the signature you submitted appears to be forged. Ava's lawyer turned pale. Ava looked cornered, but still tried to push forward. That money was a gift. He gave it willingly. The judge leaned in. That's not what you claimed in your petition. You swore under oath that he failed to provide support and that he owed you $15,000 for emotional and financial damages. You cannot change your story mid-proceeding. I could feel my breath catching in my throat. After months of fear and shame, the tide was finally turning. The judge tapped the gavel gently. Given the evidence of inconsistencies, potential fraud, and misrepresentation under oath, I am dismissing this claim with prejudice. Miss Parker, you are hereby warned that perjury is a serious offense. Ava's face drained of color. But I thought, she stammered. No more, the judge said firmly. This court does not tolerate manipulation of the legal system for personal vendettas. I looked over at Ava, and for the first time since she dragged me into this nightmare, I didn't see the cold, calculating woman who had tried to ruin me. I saw someone unraveling, someone who had lied so often, she couldn't even keep her story straight. As we exited the courtroom, reporters began to gather. Apparently, someone had leaked details of the high-stakes claim Ava had made. Daniel shielded me from the cameras as we walked to the parking lot, but I could still hear fragments. False claims. Judge exposes ex-girlfriend's lies. Courtroom drama ends in humiliation. Inside the car, I finally exhaled. Daniel turned to me, his voice calm and reassuring. It's over, Olivia. You can breathe now. Tears welled up in my eyes. Not of pain, but relief. Vindication. After all the nights I cried alone, all the days I doubted myself, I had finally been seen.
Believed.
Ava's lies had crumbled like sandcastles in the tide. And I was still standing. The weeks after the trial felt like a strange dream slowly fading into daylight. For so long, I had been living under the weight of Ava's accusations, tangled in the shadow of her manipulations, constantly looking over my shoulder. But now, there was silence. A silence I hadn't known I needed. No more court dates. No more legal threats. No more fake text screenshots or bogus emails from Ava's burner accounts. Just the soft hum of normal life returning, and the echo of my own voice, stronger than ever. I remember walking into my apartment a day after the case ended, and it was like seeing it for the first time. The walls weren't closing in anymore. The furniture no longer held memories of conflict or chaos. It was mine, my peace, my space, my truth. The media buzzed for a little while. Local blogs and news stations caught wind of the courtroom drama, especially after Ava's lies were exposed so publicly. I kept quiet, never gave interviews or commented, even though I was offered money to do so. I didn't need to clap back. I didn't need revenge. The truth had already spoken louder than anything I could say. But Ava, her world, didn't hold up. She lost her job shortly after. Apparently, her employer didn't take kindly to the perjury accusations and the dishonesty in the public eye. Friends she thought were loyal slowly distanced themselves. I didn't gloat. Honestly, I felt pity. Not because I forgave her, but because I finally understood. She had built her life on illusions, appearances, performances, games. And when those cracked, there was nothing underneath. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding. I started therapy again. Not to fix myself, but to rediscover the version of me that had been buried under her manipulation. I pour myself into work, but not to distract myself this time. I actually loved it. I found joy in simple things again. Long walks with headphones in, Sunday pancakes with too much syrup, organizing my bookshelf by color just because it made me smile. I reconnected with old friends, people Ava had pushed away, subtly or overtly. It was like finding missing pieces of myself. One night, as we sat around a fire pit in my friend Jake's backyard, I laughed until my stomach hurt. That night, I realized something powerful. I had survived something dark, and I hadn't just made it through. I had grown. Months later, I got an envelope in the mail. It was from Ava. No return address. Just a few short lines scribbled in her familiar handwriting. I didn't expect to lose everything. I just wanted you to feel what I felt. But now I see, maybe I never even knew what that was. I'm sorry. I stared at the letter for a long time. No tears. No anger. Just acceptance. She had lost herself trying to take me down. And I had found myself by standing my ground. I didn't respond. Not because I was bitter, but because some stories don't need sequels. Now, when I walk past the courthouse, I don't feel dread. I feel gratitude. That building, that trial, changed everything. It was the place I faced the worst version of someone I once loved. But it was also where I reclaimed my voice. My name was cleared, my truth validated, and my future finally my own. I wasn't a victim.
I wasn't a headline.
I was the author of my next chapter. A year later, I stood at the opening of my new business, a small creative studio nestled downtown, something I had dreamed of for years, but never thought I could actually do. Back when I was with Ava, every idea I had was either too risky, not practical, or somehow made to feel like a distraction from what she wanted. But now, as the ribbon fell away and applause echoed from friends, mentors, and even clients, I realized something deeply healing. She had tried to tear me down with lies. And yet here I was, thriving in truth. Not long ago, I ran into someone who used to be in Ava's circle. A mutual acquaintance, the kind of person who watched from the sidelines when things got messy. They approached me, almost sheepishly, and said, "I never thought you'd come out on top, but you did. You really did." I smiled, not to rub it in, but because I knew what they meant. People underestimate how powerful silence can be, how choosing integrity over spectacle, dignity over revenge, can rebuild a person stronger than ever. Ava had vanished from the public eye after the trial. I don't know where she is now. I don't need to know. Because the real ending wasn't about her. It was never about winning against someone. It was about winning myself back. And I did. Now, every morning, I walk into my studio with the sun pouring through the windows and the sound of music playing softly in the background. I breathe in peace. I sip my coffee slowly. No more battles. No more lies. Just growth. Just purpose.
Just me.
So if you've ever been falsely accused, manipulated, dragged through the mud by someone who used to smile in your face, I want you to know this. You can come back stronger. You can come back free. And the life you build after the storm, that's the part they can never touch.